woman in your life who will do what she must do to comfort you and calm you down and let you rest now. The woman in your life, she can rest so easily.
Hello everybody and welcome to Women's Spaces. My name is Elaine Holtz and I am your host. And as always, I am just thrilled about today's guest. I have a special woman with me by the name of Veronica Jacobi, who just informed me last week. I was so surprised that she has put her hat in the ring and she is running for 5th District Supervisor. And boy, I know she's going to have some race, but you know, that's what we have in a democracy. What's so wonderful is that we have elections and we have people that can put their names on the ballot, and we, the people, can decide who we want. You know, I tend to be, of late, leaning more towards women, particularly what has been happening with women. I mean, for God's sakes, ladies, you know, we have to start standing up and standing up tall and loud. But, you know, before we get into the interview, I want to introduce something very special. I'm going to put this on the screen. This is my new logo. I am so excited. My partner, Ken Norton, he had designed it for me. And also what is happening is Women's Spaces is now online at www.womensspaces.com. And as you can see the logo, my whole point of doing this show is to try to encourage women to get off their duff, do something for peace, do something for the children. You know, my basic question when any decisions are made is it good for the children? And I hope that logo expresses it. I mean, look at the butterflies, freedom, joy, a mother and her child. You know, it just gives me the goosebumps when I look at it. But it's also a reminder that as women, we bring in the future. We are responsible for bringing in the children, and we have to make sure that they are taken care of. Anyway, without further ado, I would love to introduce my guest, Veronica Jacobi. Veronica, welcome. Welcome to Women's Spaces.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Elaine.
Oh, I just love having you in the studio. You know, we've done several interviews when you were running for city council and when you ran the second time, and now you're running for supervisor. So thank you so much for coming into Women's Spaces. Well, let's start the interview out with, you know, I'm really curious. What is it, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here's Veronica Jacobi running for supervisor. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, I was looking for a house for my dad because he was living with us and we needed some help. So I found a house, and it was in Roseland. I didn't realize it was in the 5th District, but I bought it in 2010, excuse me. And when I realized that it was in Roseland, I also knew that the incumbent's record, there were things I was disappointed with. And so I started thinking about, you know, where can I most help the future? And I started putting that possibility of running for supervisor into that analysis. And I came up with that would be the best way for me to use my time and to offer myself to the community.
Well, that's inspiring. I mean, I know you're really a very, very strong community advocate. And what I found so interesting is here you are driving up on your bicycle to do the interview. I mean, it's just amazing to me the way you handle yourself. Well, you know, it's real curious when somebody is running, people want to know about them. They want to know their background. They just give us a little information. I know you have 2 daughters, and I know there's one of your son-in-laws something's happening to. Why don't you share it with our viewing audience?
Sure. Well, yes, I have 2 birth daughters, and I also have 6 foster children. And I have 3 foster grandchildren, and I have 2 new grandchildren on the way, one from my birth daughter and one from a foster daughter. And with my daughter, her husband is going to Afghanistan very soon, and that's got us all concerned. We are all worried about him. We're all sending our best wishes to all the troops as always, but I and many people wish that we would find a lasting peace very soon, and I've always wished that, and I know you very much wish that too. And So it's an intense time in so many ways, and I want to safeguard the future for my children, my foster children, and everybody's children and their children. And that's why I've created a jobs and climate plan for our area. We need jobs and climate security. We need both. We need jobs now, but we need to do them in a way that takes care of the future. And the incumbent, for example, has supported some programs that have created a few jobs, but at a huge expense. For example, the gravel mining in the Russian River. When we destroy our salmon, that hurts so many people job-wise, and of course it hurts the fish too, and it hurts our environment. And so, I want to create jobs that are green and clean and make a better future, and while they're making a better present too.
Well, it's real interesting, Veronica. You sound a little bit like a progressive. And I know I got an interesting email the other day that someone said to me, they said, "Oh, Elaine, you're a progressive." And then they put in parentheses, "and a liberal." And I thought, wow, a progressive and a liberal. And I was thinking to myself, I'm anti-war. I'm for, the same thing you are for the environment. I believe green jobs is the answer, definitely for education for our children, mm-hmm. and on and on. So I really feel that people need to start listening to the issues and get rid of those labels. You have to put it out front. This is who I am. This is what I believe in. Don't put me in a box. It's really, really very difficult. Well, I hear your concerns. And, we live in a big county, and there's 5 supervisors, and everybody I'm sure, has to weigh in and make different decisions. How do you see yourself as supervisor helping to overcome some of the concerns that you have?
Well, in addition to being, I definitely am progressive, and I look at that in the most wonderful definition, wanting progress. Of course I want progress, and I want progress now, and I want progress in the right direction, not business as usual, that we know where that's gotten us, and we're in a lot of pain because of that. And if we don't get climate security, we're going to be in even more pain. And so I want our county to be 100% self-reliant for food. I want to help support that. I want to help community gardens. I want to help individuals with incentives and whatnot. And we can do that. So we can be food self-sufficient. And that's not only good in terms of security with the climate doing odd things, and which will happen more and more if we don't act globally. But we can act globally as we're acting locally and create solutions. And we can create solutions so that if other people don't do their part, our county still will hopefully do as well as it can. And could you take me back to your question? I want to create a jobs and security plan, and that's one aspect of that. Also, green energy is a very big aspect of that, which we're already moving forward on.
Well, why don't you explain those concepts a little bit more? I mean, how do you get, why is it such a struggle to even get to that point? I mean, what is the resistance that you feel is happening that prevents this moving forward that you're talking about?
Well, I do want to mention that I'm very fiscally responsible. So when times are tight, I'm very cautious. I stop and I look at, for example, our roads are deteriorating. Well, if you don't let them get beyond a certain point, if you put an overlay on them before you get to a certain point, it's 1/7 to 1/20 the cost of if you let it deteriorate all the way and have to rebuild it. So. We have to do, we have to keep our eye on all the different balls and save costs. I'm also for pension reform, so we put a cap on pensions so people know what they're going to get, and the rug doesn't get pulled out from under them, but also that some people aren't getting a whole lot more than they need. So what I've proposed is a $100,000 cap or a $90,000 a year cap for pensions. And thus far, I've gotten good feedback on that, except for the attorneys for the county. They say they don't want to cap. Their representative told me that, but we'll see. We'll negotiate.
Well, I think the most important thing is to get it on the table and discuss these things, you know. And one of the things right now, they're looking at district elections, and one of the fears is that, you know, if we have district elections, everybody's going to argue for this and that. And I see that the Board of Supervisors is 5 people that have to sit together and have to negotiate and have to work things out for all their constituents as well as their self-interest and all the other things. I mean, it's quite a challenge. You know, it's real interesting to me that you've been so busy in between the last election and now moving in here. And I know you started, I don't know if it's a start or it's something that's been continuing for you, but you're working on this project called Our Green Challenge. You even have a website, it's ourgreenchallenge.org. I went on it, and it's very interesting. Why don't you explain what that is all about and what you're doing in that area?
Okay. Well, I want, as a supervisor, I want to help people on the large scale and the overall view, but I also want to empower people individually, because relying on government is, sometimes government takes a long time, and I want to also empower people individually to make change. So on our Green Challenge, I have ideas on ways people can save money while reducing their footprint. And for example, last year, my husband and I, we went car-free the whole year. The years before, we were very close to car-free, but we figured, you know, well, why not save on the insurance? We were already saving on the gas, but why not save on the insurance? Why not save on the registration? And we saved a lot of money. And of course, we'd already gone down. Before that, we went from 2 cars to 1, and, you know, so each time we lowered our footprint, we saved a lot of money. Yes.
I just got to share something when you talk about 2 cars going down to 1. Ken and I have been talking about that. We've been talking, why do we need 2 cars? And for some reason, it is so hard to give up that second car. So can you just, before we go into the other things about the Green Challenge, why don't you talk a little bit about how did you end up going from 2 cars to 1 car?
Yeah, so the way, well, and then we went to none. You know, we just had a car in the garage. But the way to do it is to try it. And you can have your car, if you have a garage, you can put your car in the garage, and you don't have to have it insured. You don't have to have it registered. And it's not that hard to re-register it. So whenever I try something new, especially if it's involving my husband or anyone else, I always say, let's experiment. And when you experiment, it takes the fear out of it. And we did that with a refrigerator. We've been refrigerator free for numerous years now. And we just try it. And it seems, you know, first we went to a smaller refrigerator, and then we went to no refrigerator. And yes, it helps that we're vegetarian. And yes, we eat mainly vegan at home. And yes, we have to plan ahead so we don't cook too much and eat what we have. And if we buy something like a frozen dessert or something, we have to eat it right away, which isn't that hard.
Well, it's interesting. So you're an example of someone who actually walks her talk. I mean, when you and I'm just curious, you know, I know my viewers are curious. How did you go? I know you said you're a vegetarian, so you're working more with vegetables, but still, even vegetables have to be stored. How did you go to not working with a refrigerator? I mean, can you give just some ideas on that?
Yeah, well, we tried it, like I said. Actually, it really helped. My daughter had moved into a place before us, so we gave her a mini fridge, and then when we moved in after her and she moved someplace else, we kept the mini fridge going. So it was like, oh, we can do this. And then vegetables don't need to be refrigerated. They can last quite a few days without refrigeration. Now, some are more, you know, and apples, I grew up in New York State, and we'd have a bushel of apples in the garage, and it would last for months. And their squash, winter squash, they'll last the whole winter without refrigeration. So there's lots of foods that last quite well. You know, potatoes, you keep them dark, and they shouldn't be refrigerated. Bananas should never be refrigerated. So you learn, and eggs they don't have to be refrigerated for quite a number of days, but you have to be careful, you know, not go too long, not put them someplace warm, of course.
So I would say that you're kind of an experimenter, and you look at an idea and you say, okay, let's just take the first step.
Right.
Let's look at it, you know, and that's very interesting. That's very, very interesting about the you know, the car. I mean, just having one car, that's great, you know. And now you're just, I guess you're just on bicycles now and walking.
At this point, my younger daughter came home from the Peace Corps, and it was like, okay, does she buy a car or does she use our car that was in the garage? So unregistered. So we decided to re-register it. She's been driving around town. So and when she's going someplace when she's going by me anyway, then I'll tag along. So you know that we use that efficiently. And at some point during this campaign, I will need to use the car because the 5th District is a big district. And also when I realized that I owned a house in the 5th District, I'm also very interested in greening homes and doing share rentals and things. So the house that I'm living in Roseland, I'm sharing it with other people. So I have some income from that. And I went and I bought a house in Guerneville that's an extreme fixer-upper, and I still have some things to fix on it, but I purposely bought that so I could still be a low footprint supervisor. One of my slogans is low footprint, big impact. So I want to have a low footprint as low as I can, but of course when I needed to use a car, I will. And but with a house in Guerneville, I can, you know, take the bus with my bike. It's a gorgeous bus ride. It's absolutely beautiful, and then I can sleep at my house in Guerneville.
So no, it's very interesting. You know, I was ill for a while and I had to go to rehab. And when I was finally able to get around, I couldn't drive my car, and I started taking the public transportation again. And I love the bus. I mean, you get to meet people, you get to, you know, converse, all kinds of things. Well, let's get back, to the supervisorial race. I know that's really, really important to you. Now, I know you have a Facebook page. That's one thing you've done. And also that you have a website. And the question I have is, what do you think people would learn about you by going to your website? I mean, why do you think it's important that you have the website and it's set up, and what kind of information do you have on it?
Well, I have a lot of information on the website, veronicajacobi.com, and I have I've updated my jobs and climate security plan a bit. The version on there isn't my newest and greatest, but hopefully I'll get that on there within a few weeks. But the plan I have on there is good too. It's a good start, and like I said, I've improved it. And there's all the boards and things, the various community events that the community boards and the nonprofits I've served on, the board of directors for many years. I served on the Sierra Club executive and the Sonoma County Conservation Council years, but I let go of those. Well, I'm still an alternate on the SCCC, but I let go of the ex-con position because I wanted to focus on supervisor and wanted to give all my time to the important work of serving the county.
Well, I just want to show my viewers, this is a piece of paper I have, and just a complete list of all the different things that Veronica's done. You know, she's been on the environmental impact review. She's worked with PG&E on their energy and conservation for large users of energies.
Years ago, when they were doing a much better job.
Oh, it's just very, very interesting. Also from 2006 to 2010. On the Santa Rosa City Council, on the Waterways Committee. I mean, I can go on and on. Where do you get all your time and energy?
Well, yeah, I worked all the time, and I work all the time now because of the children. When I brought 2 birth children into the world, I thought that they were going to have a chance at a good or better future than me. And unfortunately, I know that's still a possibility, but it's not where we're heading. And we have the solutions to create good jobs while adjusting and getting on clean fuels, but fossil fuels are destroying our planet. Emissions are destroying our planet, and it's serious. It's super serious. The thermometer, the official thermometer in LA broke because it was so hot. It broke, the official thermometer. There was a country, I'm not going to guess at which one it was. Well, I think it might have been Pakistan. 128 degrees. 128 degrees. Can you imagine what it must be like to be in 128 degrees?
Oh,
so,
I can't.
You know, I remember when I was growing up in New York State, I loved trees because in the summer, the tree was the air conditioning. There was this great pine tree and I would hang out under it, and the temperature was wonderful under the pine tree. And everywhere else it was hot, you know, but now with air conditioning, people don't realize that trees help us so much. I mean, a lot of people do, but we need to get our priorities straight. And we can't, I am not going to take gravel out of the Russian River and damage our water quality and damage our fish, our salmon, our precious salmon. I'm not going to stand by and not speak up either on the local level and lobbying on the other levels of government. When I was on the city council, I got us to speak out for cap and share, which is a wonderful way of putting a cap on emissions and then sharing the profits. So you tax or cap the emissions, and then the money that comes in goes to everybody else. So if the increased cost that gets passed on when gasoline, for example, is taxed, you'll have more money in your bank account to pay for the increase in the gas, for example. So it's complex and we don't have much time, but I just wanted to mention that we put a letter out from the city council. We were the first city, I believe, in the nation to encourage our representatives in Washington to explore this. And they talked about it and they've put some bills forward, but it hasn't happened yet, but I hope it happens soon.
But you know, it's really interesting as we do the interview. I have to say this. I mean, you come, you know, it's very interesting when you become to that awareness that your children are not going to have, if you don't do something, that your children are not going to have the future. And I think that's why we need more women. I mean, we really do. And people are saying, but you have to be careful, because just because it's a woman doesn't mean that the politics or their intentions are in line.
Right.
You know, and it's amazing what you talk about, because I know that's why I do women's spaces. I'm very concerned about the future, and I want the mothers of the world to stand, the mothers and the grandmothers to stand up and say enough is enough is enough. You know, so I really appreciate some of the things that you have talked about. You know, we're coming to the end of our show. Time goes by very quickly when we're having a good time. So is there anything else that you'd like to share, or any message you would like to give our listeners? Please feel free to look at that camera, and anything that's in your heart, and just express it. Just be my guest.
Thank you. Yeah, and I jumped around from salmon and protecting the waterways, but salmon, food security, I so much want food security for our area. It is so important, and we can do it. We can have our own gardens. Like Victory Gardens years and years ago. We can have community gardens. We can support community-supported agriculture. We can even have community vineyards. There are so many things we can do to empower us, so that if things on a global level are difficult, which they may be, at least we've created some resiliency. And I wanna define climate resiliency. Resiliency to me is like a rubber band, resilient rubber band, that we have not just one thing to keep us okay if things go difficult. So if there's a drought, we're not dependent on just one way of getting water. You know, things like rainwater harvesting. It's very exciting that now the red tape has been greatly reduced. You can have water from your washing machine and going to water your trees. And all these things, there are so many solutions. There are tons and tons of solutions, and I want to empower people as a supervisor on the big scale, and I want to also empower each of us individually. We don't have to wait for government to do it for us. We can elect people who will do it for us, but we can also do things ourselves. And please, please, please take action. And I saw a young woman who said she wasn't registered to vote yet, although she could be, and I asked her to watch Iron-Jawed Angels, because it's so important to vote. It's so important. Please keep your power. Please take your power. Please stand up if you're in the 99%, and take your power and use it and work for good. Thank you so much. And thank you, Elaine.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't have said it any better. And I really, when you mentioned Iron-Jawed Angels, I'm going to be sponsoring a few viewings across the county this election cycle. You know, it took us 100 years to get the vote, and from 1916 to 1920, ladies, if you're listening, you were waterboard. They didn't want us to get the vote, and we only got the vote. I'm not going to tell you by how many. You have to watch the film. You have to come to one of our presentations. Well, Veronica, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on Women's Spaces, and I want to wish you all the luck in this campaign.
Thank you.
And to my viewers, wow, what a great interview. You know, there's so many great women in our community. I mean, you know, one of our interviews is going to be with Susan Gore, and we've had Carolyn Bonsuelos on, and now we have Veronica Jacobi on. And all the other women that are running are also going to be on Women's Spaces, and there's so much to think about. You know, voting is our right in this country. Do you realize, do you recognize, not only realize, but recognize that there are wars going on, revolutions going on, so people can go to the polls. And we have that in our country. We have a First Amendment that gives us the right to free speech. That means I can get on my television show and give you my opinion. I can also go to the ballot box and I can vote. But, you know, we have to vote intelligently. You know, you have to pay attention to who's running. You have to listen to what their values are. You know, not listen to sound bites, you know, but find out who are these people that are running for office? Why are they running for office? What good are they going to do for the future of our children? Not just today's world, but the future. You know, the Native Americans say 7 generations. We're not even looking at 1 generation. We just go in, we're fracking, and we're just destroying waters. We don't even think of the future. I mean, it just, I hate to get on my soapbox, but I'll tell you something. I'm like Cindy Sheehan. I have a soapbox here, and I am going to express it. Ladies, you've got to vote. And at the very least you could do is write your congressmen, write your senators, write your local people. And make one simple suggestion before they take that important vote, before they write that important bill. They ask one simple question. Is it good for the children? My children, your children are our children. Is it good for the children? If it's not good for the children, hey, let's not do it. Because you know, folks, if it's not good for the children, it's not good for the future. Anyway, this is Elaine Holtz with Women's Spaces saying thank you so much for watching, and I will see you the next time.
The woman in your life will do what she must do to comfort you and calm you down and let you rest now. The woman in your life, she can rest so easily. She knows everything you do because the woman in your life is you. The woman in your life knows simply what is true. She knows the simple way